I posted about 20 minutes ago in the group and then never actually hit send on the post. So if you guys go into the branding discussion in our group now, you'll actually see 2 pages from my book that are specifically about branding. Those are part of your assignment for this week. It's a good creative exercise to get you thinking outside the box about your brand and just kind of give you a little bit of headway. A lot of you are business focused, some of you are not, some of you are just focusing primarily on the art, but I think that branding is really important for the artist and the artistry as well. More specifically, as I define it, your brand as an artist has to do with consistent quality so that when you look at the work, you can immediately pick out whose image it is. And if you look at really well-known artists, that is definitely something that they have. Like, I know when Trey Ratcliffe posts a photo that it's a Trey Ratcliffe photo. And if it isn't, it's somebody else channeling their Trey Ratcliffe, which is what you want. You want to have your artistry and your voice as a creative and as a photographer so consistently based and easily recognizable that anybody else that's trying to replicate that comes off as a knockoff and they're like, oh, that reminds me of that other photographer. Now, if you're sharing work and somebody is saying that about yours, that's bad. Because that means that every time you share something, what you're doing is you're sending them to somebody else. And what you don't want to do is have somebody look at your images and go, oh, that kind of looks like a Trey Ratcliffe piece. Or that kind of looks like a Mike Stapleton piece. Oh my God, have you seen his work? And you're like, no, back to my work. So that means we have work to do. So if we're focusing on the artistry, I think as far as branding goes, that's what we're looking for is consistency in the portfolio as a whole. Basically, every single one of you should be able to throw 5 images into a collective circle. And I should be able to pick out which are yours and which are yours and which are yours. And if I can't do that, then we have to do some work on figuring out what the consistency is. Now, for me, I think the sweet spot in branding as a artist and branding as a business is where those things start to overlap. So you'll notice a lot of my branding materials they're very warm, they're very soft. I tend to shoot very warm, very soft focus. So a lot of my things tend to overlap. Like, you'll see a lot of images that are very girly with a lot of pearl and lace, and I use a lot of pearl finish on my print photos. And so I like that kind of glitzy glamour in the branding and in the all of the packaging and the marketing materials and the finishes on the images and in the images themselves, so that brand continuity continues to kind of repeat in itself as we go forward. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's what I want to focus on for this week, is kind of helping you guys figure out your brands as artists and as business. And before we get into that, I want to kind of go back and forth and do a couple of minutes of sort of old business and new business, because we didn't get to everything you guys wanted in last week's hangout. So I'm going to kind of rewind back. I definitely want to give some time to Rich, because we had some problems with technical difficulties and then we couldn't get him back in. So you're my first priority. And then Mike, I know you have to go and you had a couple of questions that you wanted to make sure that we delved into. And then Ava, I'm seeing you're not in the Google group. Is that the community that you're not in right now? I will fix that immediately. How have I not caught that?
Sometimes the permissions are getting weird.
Yeah. Google's been super fun lately.
That's what happened to me last weekend. I dropped out of permission.
Let's see if you can get this new invite and get in there, Ava. You should have that in your notifications, and hopefully we'll fix that. So, okay, so starting with Richard, let's sort of divert back to last week. And I know you and I have been kind of talking about branding and business and stuff. So what's on your mind?
I have a question, and it was kind of like where to start. I think, you know, the first question on selling is, am I putting out a product that's good enough to sell? I mean, that's number one. That's the basis of all of it. Or do I need to do more work?
Have you seen other artists that are selling right now that aren't putting out work that's good enough?
No, but it doesn't. But how does that pertain to me and my, you know? Yes, you're really good at giving me at the global look at it, but it all really comes down to how it relates to us. I mean, I'm totally intimidated by all of this.
What intimidates you about it?
Is my work good enough? I mean, that's basically what you. I mean, that's the concepts that or the way of thinking that you have to come around to. Just because you hear it from your friends or people that you know on Facebook doesn't really mean anything.
Well, who would you have to hear it from for it to matter?
That's not fair. That's not a fair question. That's why I'm here. I'm here to find out if, well, that was my number one question. I only have about 2 or 3 questions, but that's the basis of everything that I jumped into the spheres for. What I'm totally lost. Okay. I have been working so hard on processing and shooting and integrating shooting and processing for the last year and a half. That's basically where I'm at. I think I'm turning out a pretty good product, but you know what I mean? You know exactly what I mean, and your smile tells me that you do.
I think that you're encountering the same problem that most creatives have. And that's primarily that you're waiting for permission, but you don't know who you need it from, and you're not going to get it. So, you know, like you said, you know, I think my work is pretty good and I'm doing well and I've gotten to a certain point, but I don't trust myself and my own opinion to really know if it's good enough to sell. And you're like, and it's great when you're getting good feedback on social media from your peers who are other photographers and from your fans who don't know what they're looking at from a technical standpoint. And all of them are giving good feedback, but they don't really count either. So you really do kind of have to answer for me, who would you need permission from before you felt validated enough to start selling? Because you're getting feedback from people that follow your work that just like the art. You're getting feedback from peers that are saying, okay, you feel like you've progressed yourself. So who is it that you're waiting for?
That's a hard question.
Maybe there isn't a specific someone, and maybe you just have to make the decision that I'm going to start selling now. If you need me to tell you that you can sell, I can do that. But are you going to take that at the word? Yes, Richard, you are ready to sell. Go put your store online right now.
Well, the thing is,
I give you permission.
Yes. I mean, that's one of the reasons I got in your cohort, is because I wanted a new cohort that basically they haven't seen my growth path. So it's different. Like if you're in the same cohort for 5 months, when you look at somebody's work, it's a jaded opinion. It has to be, because you've seen the entire progression.
Is that bad?
No, it's not bad. It's just different. But that's another thing too. By the time we've been by the time you've been in the Arcanum for 2 or 3 spheres, the level at which you are communicating artistically with the people that are here is a completely different level than anywhere I've ever seen.
Okay. So you don't want the opinions of the people that have seen you grow and progress because you think that they're biased.
Oh, definitely. Just like I don't necessarily think that my family is I don't think that that's a good parameter. But I kind of hear what you're saying is just decide to do it, go ahead and get it done.
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that, but you're running out of people to give you permission at this point. You're running, so you've rejected the family based on nepotism. I understand that. My mom still hangs my crappy photos on her wall and won't take them off. I got it. She hung my pictures on her wall when I was 7 and they were of my feet in the sidewalk and had motion blur. So, you know, yes, nepotism. But you're also negating anybody that has seen your progression and seen your growth. So they know where you started and where you're at now. I would think that that would make them a benefit to go, we see your progress and think that you're definitely at the point now that you can do that. You're writing all of those people off based on the fact that their opinions are slanted because they've been watching the process. So that negates all of them. If you're also negating, you know, fans that follow you because they're not photographers and don't really know any of the artistic expertise or talent or what makes a good photographing competition necessarily, I'm not sure who you're going to end up left with, because you seem to be ostracizing everyone that's giving you the okay. So I'm going to do some tough love and say that you're scared, and by ostracizing everybody that's giving you permission and going, oh, well, that opinion doesn't count, it excuses you from having to put yourself out there. Tell me I'm wrong.
Partially. There's always shades of gray, right? And it's not that I negate anybody, but there's different levels of, actually the public that doesn't know anything is kind of who I think is more valuable in a lot of ways, because when you're selling, you have to make the connection to the people that you're selling. And I do mainly landscapes. So that's the reason that I've taken classes on business in college for photography, but it was really slanted towards wedding and commercial photography.
Okay.
So it's just a different thing. I mean, when you do boudoir, you have an instant connection with the people that you're talking to. First of all, you have a connection because they walked in the front doors looking for you and relating to you on a personal level. Landscape is not so much that. And it's hard to get that connection. For instance, you would be in Monterey, you do a series in Monterey, suddenly you have a connection with people that go to visit Monterey or live in Monterey. So
not necessarily. Most of the landscape photos and beautiful places that I have pinned are places that I want to go but have never been.
Okay, that's a valid
Or
thing too.
places that I will never get to go or see. You know, there's way too many on my bucket list to make it to them all, but I get to appreciate them vicariously through the people that do photograph them. So I would say that your potential market and the potential people that you're connecting with are anybody that can appreciate anything that you stand in awe of and feel that same sense of awe without being there. You have a fan page now on social media?
Yeah, I actually have a business page too, but I don't really keep it up. I mean, that's why I'm here, is to start. It is a push. I'm looking for a push. It's been 5 months since my last cohort. So, I mean, it's kind of like, it's nice to absorb.
Well, I'm good at pushing people, so don't worry, you'll be fine.
All right.
What are you looking for a push to do though?
Well, one thing I need to do is, where do I start? And I guess by you posting the branding, that's kind of the road that starts all that.
Yes. So the branding assignment is actually 2 pages that are in my boudoir book, but they do translate to pretty much every genre, I think. So let's go in and we'll actually screen share for a second so that if you guys haven't seen it, you can see what I'm talking about. So you're looking for these 2, and these are from the book, and it says, define for yourself whether your branded boudoir ideally is sexual, primal, seductive, flirty, voyeuristic, romantic, sensual, or erotic, because this is written for boudoir photographers. However, if you were in a different genre, then I would be asking myself what the other words are. If you're talking about landscape photography, are these serene and zen-like a lot of the work that Sandra creates, or are they rugged and adventurous and maybe even endangering and challenging? Are they rough, or are they very green, and what kind of places are you looking for? What words are you looking for people to use when they're describing your work? You can definitely shoot more than one style, and you can definitely have more than one genre, even within the subgenres, So my work can be sexy without being sexual. It can be voyeuristic and still romantic and sensual, but it can definitely lean towards erotic and more of that. It can be several things at once. But your question is, what are the words that you're using to define and that you want other people to use when they were describing your work? If I never saw a photograph of yours ever, and somebody else was telling me about you and the kind of work that you create and your art, what are the words that you want them to use when they're talking about you? Once you understand at the core what speaks to you and what arouses your interest, then that's the strongest base for you to build your style and brand off of. So whatever makes you want to pick up your camera, whatever makes you expend the money on cameras and lenses, but also on plane tickets and travel. If you're the kind of person that's going to go spend a ton of money on the latest backpack because you need it to be super light with all of the things to encompass your gear, then you're going to want to build that into the brand at your core. It's very much about who you are. And then if you go to the second page of it, it starts asking random questions that nobody ever thinks of when they're talking about their brand. So if you were talking about your style of photography, if you had to describe it, what color would your art be? I would say for Mike with his seascapes that we would be looking at some shade of blue or green, or maybe gray. You know, with mine, you would definitely be looking at somewhere in the warmer tones. You know, everybody jokes about Lark sepia all the time. So are we looking at that? Are we looking at this kind of buttercream? Are we looking at burgundy? How about if it was a fabric? Are we talking like 100% cotton? Or are we talking about silk? Are we talking about a fabric that has like paisley prints? Or are we talking about a muted tone cheesecloth, very organic kind of feel? What about a food? How about some kind of stone or gem? Are we talking rubies or diamonds? Or are we talking river rocks? You know, what if it was a song, an instrument, a metal, a candy, a pattern, a piece of jewelry, a piece of furniture, a language, a fashion designer, a website, a celebrity, a book, a drink, a store, a place, a holiday, a fictional character, an animal, a time period, a place, a plant, a game, a scent, an age, a woman's name, a man's name, a time of day, a children's story, a word, an emotion. These are all things that have nothing to do with your photography, but I guarantee you, if you really start thinking outside the box and putting answers to these kind of things, like, I don't know, it's especially fun for me, what kind of children's story would describe your boudoir photography? You know, and so you really do, the whole point is to get you thinking like a creative and thinking outside the box. But as you're going through all these things and kind of figuring it out, you're going to start asking yourself, why would it associate with this thing? How do you pick a book that describes it? Because if I say that my boudoir photography, if it were a book, would be Harry Potter, then I better really start questioning where I'm making those connections, because it's a little bit magical and mythical, and it's about fantasy and the ability to be all of the things that we thought that we were before we were told what was reality. And it's, you know, Harry Potter's all about, you know, the 9 3/4 platform that takes you to this other side of the wizarding world that nobody else exists. And when you step through my door, it's the same thing. Can you start to follow that a little bit? You know, and yes, it's still a very far extension, but now I have the basis of where my brand fits into that, that when you step through the door, you're stepping outside of what you accept as reality, and you get to be whatever you want and whoever you want while you're in here. And yes, if you want me to take pictures of you in your little glasses and your, you know, your Gryffindor scarf, I will do that too, but it doesn't have to be that literal. You know, if we're talking time periods, I'm very, very drawn to the 18th century. You see a lot of Marie Antoinette style ball gowns and big hairdos and stuff in a lot of my work. On the cover of my book is an image that's very Marie Antoinette style. So those kind of things will help you think outside the box rather than going, what font should my business cards be in, which is what everybody else tends to go to. And I want you to really get to the heart of it, and then we can build all the supplies. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So that's where branding starts for me, mostly because I want you guys to be thinking outside the box and I want you to get creative with it. I think a lot of artists think that being an artist and being an entrepreneur are like these two separate things that we put together. But for me, part of what I enjoy about being an entrepreneur is how creative I get to be. I get to create things out of thin air. Right? That's what we do as photographers. We take these things and we create them. That's why I love painting and that's why I love sculpting, because I take this lump of clay or this average everyday mom that has her hair in a ponytail and sweatpants and maybe didn't get to brush her teeth before she walked out the door with her 3 kids, and I get to turn her into this sensual vixen. I get to do the same thing with my business. And I think for a lot of creatives, they go, oh, well, part of the reason I don't want to be in business is because I don't want to lose the love for it because I'll get weighed down with all this stuff. I don't do it if I don't enjoy it, whether it's business or it's art. I am just as creative and just as excited about building the entrepreneurial side as I am, doing the actual artistry and creating the product. So my question to you is, what kind of business do you want to be in? What is it that makes you want to sell? Yes, I want money. Yes, I want the validation of people being willing to part with their hard-earned money and deciding that I am a worthy thing to invest in. And I like the emotional validation that comes from that, which I think is what you're looking for a little bit. And I think the fear comes from being afraid that when you put yourself out there, you'll just hear crickets and no one will buy. And that rejection, that rejection's so hard, but I don't think that's necessarily because people are rejecting the artistry. It's because we haven't gotten creative enough about building the business around the art. So if you're asking for permission, you officially have permission. In fact, I am not going to graduate you until you have your work up for sale. So now it's an assignment. It's not even permission. It's a prerequisite. So I think the branding exercise is a good place to start. But I would write, also, I would love to see a page from you on why I have avoided selling my work for so long. A biography by Richard. Even if you don't post it or share it with me, I think it'll be therapeutic for you.
Okay.
Other questions?
Thanks.
That's it? Okay. Mike, you're on deck. What can I do for you this week? Nothing, because he's on mute.
I'm not on mute. Oh, sorry.
2 words. First word. Still on mute. My hearing's going. I'm getting old. He gets nothing. One more time, hit the unmute button. I can't unmute you. Maybe sign out and go back in. All right. How about Rebecca or Garen or David or Ava? I've got all of you. Oh, there we go, Mike. You're hitting it multiple times. I think that's the problem. Ava, how are you, love, while Mike's figuring out his audio?
I'm okay. I'm packing, so you see me going back and forth. I'm just, for me, I've figured out a lot artistically. I know exactly what I want to do, how I'm going to do it, and whatnot from that artistic standpoint, but business-wise, I'm kind of lost. I don't know where to find a basis for forums, to start my own forums, or to start working out like my contracts and the legal end of it, and managing my finances. Tax time was very stressful for me this year because I didn't have what I needed in order.
Okay.
And then I am rebranding. I'm in the middle of rebranding. I've ripped down pretty much all of my images from everywhere, and I'm starting over from scratch.
Okay.
And so I have been having a difficult time explaining to the various people that are trying to come up with concepts for me for a full rebranding.
Define concepts regarding what?
So they wanted to know what, like what Cerebral Aperture is, what it stands for, some of the information that you actually put in that those questions, like what colors and whatnot, I had kind of answered. And I don't know if I'm being too obtuse or what, but I'm having several artists and companies come back to me, not even with anything drawn or done. They're just having a really hard time understanding what I'm trying to put forth.
Now, who are these companies? Are these companies that are trying to help you build your brand and do materials for you, or?
These are companies that are trying to come up with like with a logo and trying to come up with the stuff that I'm going to, excuse me, the stuff that I'm going to put on like my social media or my website, the kind of symbols and things that go along with, like what I would put on my business card, what I would put on the stickers on the back of the stuff that I do. And they have no idea.
Okay. So what is Cerebral Aperture in 3 words?
Minimalistic, surreal, healing.
Okay. And who are the clients?
I would say that it's split because I'm doing stock photography. And so the people who look for stock photography aren't going to be looking for the other stuff. The other stuff is going to be people who are looking for something that they can have that gives them a feeling of calm or happiness or understanding for themselves. So, when they, like my friends who really love coffee and they pick up the coffee mug and it has those little statements about coffee, and even if there's not coffee in the mug, just holding that mug makes them feel just better about their day. And that's kind of where the other part is. And actually the healing portion of what I stand for is where artists are having a hard time in coming up with concepts. And then the surreal and minimalism is an issue for them too, because they come up with something that's really whimsical, and
Okay.
I'm not whimsical at all. I would make something with 4 blocks of color before I would make something with little swirls and butterflies and at least the things that I attach with whimsy. And it's just been really difficult for them to visualize how to put those things together and then make visualizations for me to approve.
Are you on Pinterest?
Yeah, I guess I am.
Okay. Do you have a brand board on Pinterest?
I have one for the font because I liked my eye, and the first company that I worked with, and I'm still working with, they were going to try and redo my eye to be less intrusive, less harsh, because it's really, really graphic with white and black. And I use more white, grays, and blues. I don't really use black. It's too harsh, I think. So.
Okay. Hang on a sec. I'm going to actually, my branding board is private, but I can screen share it with you guys. Because if I send you the link, you won't be able to get in. So I think if you're going through this whole rebranding, that part of the problem is that you're in the middle of an identity crisis. And you're out who you are again. So until you figure that out, I think it's going to be really hard for you to share that with anybody else. So I do think the branding exercise would be really good for you. But I don't think it's necessarily that the people that you're working with aren't giving you what you want as much as you aren't able to convey what you want in a way that it's translating for them to be able to do that for you. Let me see. I'm having trouble finding it.
All right. Like they asked for a visual example, and I haven't produced any new work. So the closest example I had is the example of the image that I have on my landing page of my site.
Okay.
And so
do you want to screen share that with us?
I should be able to. Let me see. Where's the screen share? There it is.
Right up on the left.
Application. No. I hope this works.
Okay.
So,
so this is our brand in an image. This is also another good assignment. If you guys had one photograph that was your brand, what photograph would it be?
how do I stop? Oh, here we go. Okay. So, yes. So that was, if I was going to do it in one image, that would be the image. Like I look at that and I feel really calm. I don't feel overwhelmed, and it's very simplistic and very minimalistic. And but I don't see whimsy. I don't see some of the other things that people.
Okay. Well, let's work through that for a second. What do you see?
I see nature, because even though it's flower on her and I know it's flower, to me it looks like snow. I see kind of a very simple, there's not a lot of distraction. It's just her, but it doesn't look blank or empty. And I see someone who's very calm and at peace and completely comfortable in the state that she's in the environment that she's in.
Okay.
So, but she doesn't feel static. She doesn't feel motionless.
But you're talking about the model, not about the artistry and the artist. You're talking in the way that somebody would stand in front of the gallery and talk about that piece specifically and the person within it, because when we do any kind of portrait photography, we have the want to identify with the subject matter and tell ourselves stories about them. That's the whole point. So as a portrait image, it works great. As a branding image, everything that you're saying has to do with that person. It doesn't have to do with the brand of artistry. Can you feel that difference a little bit? It's a subtle distinction, but it's an important one. So why don't we pull that image up again, or send me the link and I'll pull it up if it's.
I put it in chat.
Okay, perfect. So let's look at it again. Okay. So guys, feel free to jump in the chat or live and give me some words that tell you about this brand. What are you seeing for it if you were going on and saw this as a company? First words that come to your mind. Single words are fine. More in depth is fine. What do you got? I have white. You said nature. I'm going to go with organic.
Okay.
We're streaming on my Facebook as well. I've got simplicity from Devin, sleep, fantasy, dark, depression, monotone, relaxation, serene. Are any of these resonating with what you're trying to convey?
Serene, organic.
Ooh, Richard says in between. I like that one.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say dark and depression, but part of what I'm dealing with and healing from is depression. And I do put that out in my blogs and my stuff. I have a lot of followers who are PTSD, OCD, people who are suffering with depression.
I also have clean and structure. I think the clean is especially amusing since she's covered in flowers. So it's interesting that clean is something that comes across, but I get that from the clean minimalist kind of feel of the shot and the all white. Metamorphosis, shattered, entropy, those detail. So I think this is a really good exercise for you guys to do. And this is something that I would really love you guys to put into the branding thing this week is a single image, because that's usually what we show, right? We have our first image on our website. We have our profile image on our social media. We have the image that goes on our business cards or the front of our brochures or however you're marketing, and usually for me, it's the same image. So right now when I'm marketing the turning page, you see the same bridal image. It's the same one that's on my advertising one, same couple that's the first image on my website, because I'm creating that continuity and because memory retains images before words. So that image showing up again and again is solidifying the brand to all of my wedding clients. Now, I do think that you can have different photographs or images for different things you do. Like you said that some of it is your stock and some of it is the more creative and sculptural pieces. So I would be fine with you having a photograph of one of your creations for those kind of clientele and having this for your stock kind of imagery and other things, or you can have one as your main photograph for everything that is Cerebral Aperture.
If you would click on the themes link, it would just take you to one of the images that's used for the themes. For me, I find it similar, but most people didn't. And
Which
so those, all three of them are, it doesn't matter which one you want to pick.
Okay.
See, again, I have the same, it's a lot more colorful, but other than color, for me, it evokes the same emotions.
So you're hoping that all of these are invoking the same emotions as the first one?
In the sense that they're very serene, they're very calm, there's not a lot going on. To me, it fulfills my need for minimalism. They're just no people, and it's more colorful.
I would agree that there is a minimalist flow going through all of them. I'm not sure that we're going to get the same words from a fern growing out of a toilet in the middle of a beach as we are for your main ones. Same thing. I'm not sure that these are creating the same kind of continuity that we're getting from this image.
Okay.
So actually one of my cousins is on my Facebook and she says, I don't get that at all. I wouldn't even think it was the same photographer.
Wow. Okay.
Anna Johnson says negative space most. Now, it's important to notice that Angie is probably closest to your potential clients because she's not a photographer, and photographers don't usually hire photographers except for maybe weddings, portraits, events kind of thing where they can't take the pictures themselves. So I think it's really important to first do the branding exercises with the other. She's laughing. She says, yeah, I know nothing. I just appreciate the art. It's not an insult at all, Angie. I'm paying you a compliment, actually, because I think we get into our photography groups and our Arcanum group and our peers, and we get so ingrained in the photography aspect that we forget that most of the people we're appealing to are not our people in the sense of other photographers and artists. You know, that what appeals to other portrait photographers is probably not the same as what appeals to macro photographers and landscape and seascape photographers and wildlife photographers. You know, those are all very different genres. So it would be interesting to also see if among your favorite images for your branding image, if what gets picked as the favorite happens to be the favorite of every genre of photography. Like if all the landscape photographers pick one and your portrait photographers pick another. I would say that this image definitely represents your brand well. And the others are excellent stock photos and theme photos, but I don't think they're your brand. However, if what you're trying to sell are these ones, I'm not sure that
No, those are the they're free. They're
Okay.
just kind of like they're really cool. I put them on since I made a theme for my own computer. I put them up there for other people as well. So
I'm using sell as in other people use it. That doesn't necessarily mean money has to exchange hands.
okay.
You know, ideally we want that, and that's good. Okay, so these are all,
They're old, but they continue to sell. So I haven't put anything new up there yet.
okay. So again, same thing. I think there's some truth to the fact that I wouldn't look at these images and assume that they come from this artist.
Yes.
So I think part of the reason that your people are having a hard time creating your brands and your marketing materials and things like that are because there is a lot of inconsistency right now with your brand as an artist, let alone as a business. I wouldn't have picked any of those out as yours. So I think you're having a little bit of a multiple personality disorder, artistically speaking, which is totally fine. And you can totally do those things, but it may be the kind of thing that you have to actually break into sub brands. So the Turning Page offers all kinds of different photography by different artists. I have 12 artists employed here who have very different styles. So I have to find a way to market the different genres and the different styles in those genres and still create a brand continuity under that of the sort of Turning Page family and still have the individuals. So I would say that your first step is probably to break down what it is that you're offering and what you want to be known for, because you're doing these themes and you have the stock photography and you have your more artistic and fine art kind of stuff. What do you want to be known for?
You mean as in, do I want to be known for the stock photography or the artsy stuff? Or
Yeah, when somebody says, oh, I've heard of Ava. She's finish the sentence.
see, the way I would finish that sentence is she's the one who makes all the stuff for people who are healing. Not like, for me, it's all about how you feel, not necessarily, how you feel in seeing it, how it helps you. So I mean, it's different. The people who love my work who have problems with OCD don't like my work for the same reason that someone with PTSD would like my work. Like, they see completely different things. I have people now with sleep disorders who they like my work and see something completely different too. I don't know how to make that, like, I do it all for the same purpose, like it all comes from the same place.
So we're getting some other good feedback and comments here. From a photographer perspective, the flower and the toilet I can see together, but the sunset stands out and doesn't seem to fit. The portrait looks so different and more artistic, which I completely agree with. Those look like they're two totally different photographers. Based on the front picture on the site, I would expect to see pictures of emotion, people struggling, people at peace, people in turmoil. That picture is amazing and definitely induces an emotional response. So I want more, the raw photography. That's what I would expect and want.
Okay.
Okay. So of all of them, I think that image is the closest that you're getting to doing what you're meant to do as a photographer. And I've had you from the beginning. Anna says artistic healing photographer. Is she more abstract? Is her work more fine art? But that's what she's getting from you. So those are, now we're starting to feed into your theme. So I think part of your big severing here is that you picked the right image to create an emotional attachment and response to your work that's leading people into wanting to see it. And then you're giving them toilets with ferns in them. Okay.
Okay.
And I mean, I could totally see that working. Excellent. That is like the best fertilizer, like stock image I've ever seen come up with as a concept. Like, it's awesome. I love it. And the cycle of life and all kinds of stuff. And it's a great image, technically speaking, too. And I've always appreciated the little bit of humor in the juxtaposition of it all. And I love the floral image. And I agree that what you're creating them for totally works. However, I don't think that they go with what you're putting out as your face. So essentially what you're doing is you're inviting other artists to come in and kind of argue with you about how they feel about the image. So you're like, it's essentially like artistic dating, you know, like here's your dating profile and you're inviting everyone that wants to buy your work to read your profile and get a feel for you. And then they get there and they're like, oh, you look nothing like your profile picture. Guess I'm stuck with you for dinner though. So you're probably going to lose a lot of potential sales just based on the fact that people are going to come and they're going to get emotionally attached to this image and want to see more of this artist's work. And what they're getting when they go in is not this artist's work.
Okay.
So you may have to subdivide. This may be one of the occasions that I endorse you having your artistic site and then your work site, which are maybe two different things. I'm all about you getting that money, girlfriend. I am all about you doing the stock. I'm all about you shooting and creating for what sells. And those images that are older, if they're selling, absolutely leave them up there and let them make you money, because it's work that you did years ago that's still bringing in income. And that is the way that you build a profitable business that allows you to create more of this kind of work. Because if you can just build the quantity of that up and you have enough money coming in to pay your bills from past pieces, that gives you the freedom to work on that kind of stuff. That's exactly what I do. The turning page is my business. It does not excite me except for when they bring in newborn puppies. You know, do I like it? Yes. Do I still get, you know, emotional and romantic about the weddings? And do I like playing with the kids? Absolutely. Am I excited to do the baby cake session? Sure. I love all that stuff. What do I get really impassioned about is the reliquarian work. This supports that. So I'm totally okay with you having Ava the artist and Ava the entrepreneur.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
I am. I will need some help, especially once I'm situated and relocated, to kind of get that done.
Okay.
Right now, 90% of my time is boxes or children.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I would make the argument for you with how busy mom and moving and all that is. I'm right there with you. Commit to giving yourself 20 minutes a day. That's all I need from you is 20 minutes towards this every day. You have 24 hours. I need 20 minutes of one of those hours, and make yourself a to-do list the day before on what you're going to do in that 20 minutes. You'd be surprised what you can get done in 20 minutes if that is your sole focus. And, you know, chat with people in your family, whatever you have to do. If it's after the kids are in bed, you know, whatever it is, set a clock and a timer. That 20 minutes, the door is closed, no one bothers you, nothing is on, there's no outside distractions, and all you do is focus on this. You will be amazed at what you accomplish in the next month. Is that a fair ask?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
All right. So I just want to feed you this last bit because I think this is good for you. And I think it's all random, unattached people, which is what Richard's looking for, is like people that aren't jaded and slighted towards you. I would totally want to see more of the main image. It does invoke an emotion and sparks interest. The fine art main image would be something I could see fitting with the healing process of people's emotional struggles. So people are emotionally attaching to that. So when you're ready to market that as the potential business, like I'm fine with these little things kind of getting stacked and being the pennies that add up to dollars, because they do. But I think that this is where Ava the artist is. And Ava the artist is who I invited to come in and join, because your work screams for emotional turmoil within. You know, and there is a lot of truth to the fact that creation is an act of destruction, you know? So the fact that this kind of stuff pulls emotionally and offers that sense of healing, you know, they say art should disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. And you absolutely have the ability to do that. I do not want you to give that up. That is what you are here to do. I'm okay with you doing stock as well, but that's not your calling. When we get down to the passion and the profit, this kind of work is what I want to see you really center in on, because this is who you are, girlfriend. Okay. Other questions? Garen says whimsy would be if one of the model's eyes were open. I can agree with that. And David says, how well does the image need to connect with the name? Are you asking in terms of the image connecting with the company name or the brand name, or what specifically are you referring to? Garen says, go ahead, David.
Oh, I didn't know whether that was a rhetorical question or a question for me.
No, it is. What was your thought behind
well, there was a disconnect for me between the image I was looking at and the idea of cerebral aperture. They didn't connect in my mind, and I don't. Maybe they don't need to. But when Ava started,
expect to see as an image for cerebral aperture, what kind of image does that bring to mind?
Being the analytical kind of person, I would be looking for something a lot more analytical instead of the kinds of things that Ava talked about, especially the healing. I mean, I as she talked, I began to understand more what she was trying to do. But the cerebral aperture, if I were Googling and I saw that name and then saw a description, I'm not sure I would click through on it, or maybe that's just me.
Ava, how attached are you to your name?
Cerebral aperture is who I am. It is about perception and how you see things, how you view the world, and cerebral aperture is me. It's how I view the world and how I see things and absorb them in my own mind and share them with others. So it is who I am.
Okay, so I think one of the things that we might need from you then is a sort of like a promo video from you. Have you seen the other photographers that do that? And it's like, get to know me in my studio. I would love to see a very minimalist, plain background kind of thing where you are talking about what cerebral aperture is and how it came into being and how that connects to your artwork and your vision. Because I do think it's totally open-ended. I'm chuckling at Garen, who said, I would assume Cerebral Aperture is a company that performs radiation therapy for people with brain tumors, you know? And so but think about it from the standpoint of someone that's never heard of you. Think of it from the standpoint of people that randomly come across you that may be lawyers, doctors. And, you know, so for a doctor, cerebral takes on a totally different meaning than what it might for an artist. For Marvel comic enthusiasts, you know, I immediately go to, so when you first signed in with us, and you've been with me for years, your account had Cerebral Aperture on it. And I remember going through, and the first thing I thought was Cerebro from Marvel, because that's all my son watches right now, you know? And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And, you know, and obviously Aperture, all photographers connect with, but it'd be an interesting theory to go and post it, not in a photography group, but I would love you to go post it in like your local yard sale group, you know, with a whole bunch of like random people and moms in the area that aren't necessarily connected to art, and go, the name of my company is Cerebral Aperture, and I'm just looking for some feedback. What does that bring to mind for you? And just see what people come up with and see how point on you are. And then we can worry about how to close that gap and dial that in a little more into what you actually are. Okay. I lost Mike, but I want to make sure that I get to some of the stuff that he was texting about too. While I'm finding his post, who's next? David?
Yes.
What is on your mind, and how are you feeling?
Well, actually, I'm feeling pretty good. I think, well, I posted either yesterday or the day before yesterday, I had begun to define where I wanted to go in our time together. And actually, the word passion helped me out a lot, because as I've explained on more than one occasion, my real passion is around photography and history and 19th century painting. And so that is driving how I began to think about what I want to do. And so I'm feeling pretty good right now. I may have bitten off way more than I want to bite off.
Sorry, I'm clicking on Mike's site and he has music. Mike, that's bad. Don't do that.
So I guess I'm open to questions from you.
Okay, so I'm actually interested. Do you mind if I pick on you a little bit, actually? Because you're totally dialing in on my painting self, and so you're posting images, and I didn't get to do any of yours for critique, and I would love to. Let me see if I can pull one up real quick. So I definitely think for you doing some work on the basics and kind of returning. Have you been taking actual art classes aside from just photography?
No. What I have been doing, of course, is looking a lot of online things, and I'm beginning to explore where I might be taking a few courses. But I'm viewing this as, in terms of art, I'm like a sphere zero. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm kind of starting down there, and at this point in time, I know I need to start out with sketching and painting, but I'm still trying to figure out how to start with all that.
Okay.
Other than just picking up a pencil or paintbrush and starting to do stuff.
Right. Now, I do think that you have a natural talent for it, especially if you've never taken classes. And I found for me, having the art background definitely helped me close the gap on photography pretty quickly. Just because a lot of the basics are the same. So I think it'll be the same for you in reverse, where having this background in photography will help you close the gap with drawing, and it'll be a much shorter learning curve for you. So going to the picture that you did here, you have the basics already and the understanding of shadow and light and color, which I fully appreciate. I think that it really depends on the kind of paintings that you want to do. So something I would really love to see from you is for you to pick a couple of pieces from other artists and share them as far as what the style is that you're going for. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would love to see someday I'd love to sign my name on a piece of work that looks like this and has this kind of feel to it, because there are incredible realist artists that do paintings that almost look like photographs. And then there are abstract artists like Chagall that I love. And then there are Degas, where I wouldn't say that it's the correct perspective interpretation, but all you see is the emotion of the shot, not the motion, but the emotion of it. And I think that that's part of it. Some basic little things to pay attention to is that you have the general understanding of light. So when we look in here, we see like the sun kind of coming in on the mountains, but you're not carrying that light into the details of it. So technically, every single one of these little trees that we're doing should actually have a highlight on one side facing wherever the direction of the light is coming from. This is something where a lot of composite artists and photography fail too, is that they pick these pieces to composite into the same shot and they don't pay attention to the fact that the light is coming from different sources. And that's what makes it look cut out, no matter how well you composite them together. So different things, like here we have the light going all the way around the tree. And ideally outside, your light source is the sun, and that's pretty much it. So we should have highlights here and here and here coming forward with everything that's facing the tree. And these sides should be in shadow.
Right.
Okay. So that's something that I definitely want you to pay close attention to when you do the next sketch, is where is my light coming from? Because whatever's facing it should be in light and whatever's away from it should be in shadow. And then just paying attention to more details of it, like harsher highlights. This was something that was really hard for me, and goes into the way that I shoot as a photographer too. I tend to blend my lights and shadows a lot. And highlights have their hot points too. So the same way that you have hot spots in photography, like taking into consideration what the surface is, because metal tends to be a lot more reflective than say wood or glass. So you would have harsh white highlights on the forward parts of the bench here, where you might just have the lighter browns on the tree because of the way that different materials absorb and bounce light. So those are all things, you know, and just like photography, the lighting makes the shot and is what sells it. So that's why something will start to look off if it's not there. So you have a lot going on where your lighting is just a little bit confused on it. And then I think if we start to get the basis of the light correctly, that's the foundation for learning the rest of the skill with it.
Okay.
So, so for you, what is the goal then? What would you like to focus on for the next couple of levels?
Well, the next couple of levels is definitely, you know, put my camera down and start picking up and learning painting and sketching and the kinds of things you were just talking about. You know, part of the problem is, as a photographer, all the things you just said, I know, but it's very easy to, it's a lot easier to get those light components right in, you know, because you got the sun or whatever, it's doing it for you. Now you have to pay attention to all these little things that, like you talked about with the metal surface. So it's beginning to pay more attention to light values. One of the things I actually started doing is trying to sketch spheres and boxes and shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of, and having seen where the light came from and where I need to shade. I've started doing some of that work. So I see that for 2 or 3 months now, me just spending time on that.
So I get the feeling you're a little bit like me and you like to jump in with both feet, maybe before you're
Yes.
ready to swim.
Right.
And I do that too. And I'm totally fine with that because I think you learn a lot by making all the mistakes up front. I'm currently doing that with latex and sculpting right now and molds. And my studio is a disaster area at home. It's just covered in cornstarch and flour and latex and paint and Mod Podge and string and all kinds of stuff. Now I noticed with that drawing that you did, you took the photograph of the tree and then you took the tree and tried to put it in a park with mountains. Is that what you're looking to do, to be able to photograph individual elements and then create your own version of painting with them?
Somewhere in between. That's something, in fact, I decided I might want to start a collection of trees and flower bushes and items that I can. I want to start with a photograph, a landscape, a really good photograph that I've made, but I want to overcome some of the photographic limitations you have sometimes.
Okay.
Take out the elements, put in elements. I like landscapes in the Hudson River. A lot of those mountains are very much a part of many of the Hudson River images. But the problem is, when you photograph, I don't have a good tilt shift lens, so inevitably the mountains aren't as dominant. Mm-hmm. If I'm getting those foreground elements that I want, just the nature of a wide angle lens is going to diminish those mountains from what you're actually looking at. Whereas I see with the photography, I can now bring those mountains forward and more massive, but with the same depth overall in the photo. Does that make sense?
So you're almost talking about creating multiple photographs where you can sort of create a photographic composite that you can then paint.
Yes.
Okay.
Or start with the photograph, completely deconstruct it and bring it back with elements having different prominence in the image.
I like it. You're thinking of photography like an artist, because the difference is the photographer sees what's there and decides what to omit. So we're in a room and we see everything that's going on in the room as wide as our perspective is, which is just a little shy of 180 degrees, and we have to decide what in the room is worthy of photographing. Same thing with landscape. When we go out, where is the photo? So we crop in and create what's essential with it. With artists, you start with a blank canvas and nothing is there, and you decide what to add, not what to take away. So you're kind of deconstructing photography and going about it from an artist perspective, which I like and I think is really unique, and I think that'll be part of your brand. Mm-hmm. I think that you're running before you walk a little bit, and I have a really, really hard time chastising you about it because I do that all the time. So the part of me that is a kindred spirit says, go for it, keep doing it. The part of me that is the master artist that's supposed to give you the correct path says that what might be helpful for you in the next couple of paintings is to actually take a photograph that you have created and repaint that exact photograph as is, just so that you can study the perspective and the light and the shadow and the three-dimensional quality of it, and treat it sort of a paint by numbers. So, rather than taking the photograph of the tree in front of the store and then trying to create the mountains and the park and the field, I'm fine with you redoing that one with it in front of the store and seeing how the light sits on the architecture and where the highlights get hotter based on the kind of material that it's hitting and what creates that sort of three-dimensional shape in terms of light and shadow and in terms of perspective with what's near and what's far.
Mhm.
So there's, do you happen to have Netflix?
Yes.
Okay, there's a great series called Brain Games on there. And I think it's I think it's actually the first episode. They talk about tricking the mind with perception, and they do a lot of these interesting experiments with color and shadow and light and movement and perspective to show how the brain translates space and distance and size based off of light and perspective lines and things like that. And it basically shows how your brain thinks these two things are the same size until you add this shadow or until you add this line of distinction between in front of and behind, which I think would be really beneficial for you to watch. Aside from the fact that it's amusing and interesting, it has a lot to do with the artist and how we trick the eye into seeing what we want it to see. So that's your homework, is to go watch TV. This is the best class ever.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: in terms of kind of paint by numbers, do you want me to do that with actual painting, or can I use Procreate or?
I'm totally okay with you using Procreate too. I will say that each offer their own interests. So a digital painting is different in the sense of not having any texture or depth to it. And you can create a lot of depth and interest visually with actual paint. So let me ask you this. If you're doing a gallery show, are you doing prints of your digital art, or are you hanging your paintings on canvas?
I have not thought that far.
Okay. Well, what's your gut feeling?
It's not so much my gut. It's what this is where how much I would challenge myself. I guess I would feel much better about actually hanging a painting eventually than I would a painting that had its roots in my photography than actually hanging the digital painting of it, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Because that's a bigger challenge. That would be a bigger challenge and a better opportunity to be unique.
Yes and no. I think it depends. And this may be me being biased because I have my history in brushes. Because I've been painting since I was 2, getting put in timeout for not using the paper, but my grandmother's walls. But as much as, and I'll go pull out some of my paintings and actually upload them so you can see a couple of my pieces. I'm pretty good. But it's harder for me to paint digitally than it is to paint on canvas. And I don't know if that's just because I have more experience with brushes, but I like the feel of the paint on the brush and the canvas. And I feel like that gives me a lot more dexterity and control over what I'm creating. And I can't feel it the same way on my iPad. So my paintings that are digital on my iPad Pro are nowhere near the quality that I can create if you give me some brushes and actual paints and a canvas. So I'm okay with both. I will say that being on Procreate is, 1, significantly less messy. 2, significantly less of a financial investment because you already have the app. That's it. Most of us have tablets and things now. So in order to go and get all of the paints, and I would say acrylics are probably the easiest to begin working with if you do decide that you want to get into that. Oils, you have to work with a lot of thinners and terpenoid and other varnishes and things to get the same kind of flow. And being someone that jumps in, I thought I could just dip it in water like I do with my acrylics. So I had a painting that didn't dry for 8 months because I covered all my oil paints in water. But even still, even with like the smaller vials of the paint, you're still probably going to make a several $100 investment between good brushes and paints and canvases. So if you don't have your heart set on having a canvas painted gallery show,
Right.
and you haven't given that, then I would say play with the Procreate, make sure this is the direction that you want to go, and just focus on the light and the shadow and the shapes and the perspective kind of stuff. There's a lot of really good tutorials on Pinterest that are like step-by-step how to draw this. And there's a lot of good tutorials on YouTube. You can always go like, you know, the nostalgic route with Bob, what was his name? He painted the Happy Tree.
Yeah, with the little.
Yeah. And the afro, you know, there's tons of stuff like that.
Actually, I've come across, I forget his,
Bob Ross. Yeah.
James, yeah, Bob Ross. There's a guy, James, I think Juliet is his name, that I've been starting to follow, who uses Procreate. And he's an artist, but he does a lot of he's been doing some tutorials on painting landscapes or painting sunsets or painting snow, and so that I've started to follow him. The one thing I want to do is I do want to do some actual painting, and the reason I want to is obviously with Procreate, being able to layer and having control over those layers. And if you make a mistake, if you got something that's darker that should be in front of something that's lighter, you know, you can just move your layers around. So I guess I want to force myself to think a lot harder about.
There is a much higher learning curve with actual paint, and it's an expensive learning curve because you waste a lot of materials and you end up throwing out canvases or gessoing over them and starting over, which is also fine. But with all that texture, it's not like you can just paint over and it's done. You have to like basically scrape the canvas clean or put like a heavy layer to get a smooth surface to start through, or the texture comes through the next pieces. I have a lot of experience with wasted materials and paints.
Okay, well, I at least want to have that in order to force myself to think more about, as I start, you know, what from beginning to end, how you begin to build this thing up. Obviously, I don't know that I want to spend a ton of money on paints and.
I would say right now, the smartest thing to do, which is rarely the thing I actually do, but the smartest thing to do would be to use the Procreate or go and invest in a good set of artist pencils and a sketchbook. You know, that's a good step from one to the other to play with, because same thing, it feels different when it's actually in your hand and on paper rather than on a screen. I would like to see the next piece from you in black and white. I'm fine with it being pencils on an artist book that you just take a photo of, or in Procreate. But the same way that we teach in baby steps with photography, it's the same thing. So worry about the dimension of it being three-dimensional and it having the right light and shadow and the right perspectives, and focus on that only. Because light and shadow in color is totally different than light and shadow itself. So if you're doing black and white, everything is shades of gray. You know, you've like 10 scales. So we did like that little art class thing where you would like do the block and one would be black and one would be white, and it got consecutively darker. That's how you're showing light and dark. When you get into color, even if you just watch like, oh, sunset on the beach, but if you watch it a lot of times, like the sunset isn't like a big orange sunset. It's blue and it's green and it's got bright yellow and all of these other colors that fade in. So really take some time, and a good experiment for you with color would be to go out with your camera and take pictures of things close up and tell me how many colors you actually see in that tree. Because that tree with the green leaves and white flowers is not green and white. It's white and pink and yellow. There's probably very little actual white in it in the way that we actually perceive the colors. Same thing with the grass. I've seen bluegrass, you know, and it's green grass, but it depends on how the light hits it and the color hits it and what time of day it is. And, you know, if my car's parked in front of it and things like that. So photographing different things and finding colors that are actually making up the color that your eye perceives it as. Like, you know, you're wearing a red shirt, you know, the oranges, the yellows, the purples are actually translating. Like even on the shirt right now that you're wearing, and it's probably like a light blue, but I see grays in it. I see white in it. I see purple undertones in it. I even see a little bit of like a buttercream yellow highlight. Same thing with our skin. We think like flesh tone, but it's very rarely flesh tone. It's a lot of warm colors and a lot of cool colors. So starting to pay attention to colors will help you see that when you're painting a brown tree trunk, you're very rarely using brown.
Okay.
So I think those are the next steps. But I think a couple of sketches in black and white will help you focus on the shape, the perspective, and the light and dark. When you get one that you're really happy with, then I would graduate towards color and being able to do the same thing with color. And when you get a couple of those that you're really happy with, then I would start putting them together as maybe I love this tree and I want to drop it in this background and starting to play a little bit more with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that gonna stifle you to not be able to just run and play with it though?
No. I won't feel stuck because I can always do other stuff at the same time.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Perfect. Federico, we found you. You found your way in. I'm super excited. Hi, how are you? You have to come off mute. So I was supposed to do something for you as well. Oh, the mic's dead. He can't chat. You had a link to something that you wanted me to look at though. Was it your website? Okay. If you want to share it in the chat, we'll take a look. All right. If you guys want to click on the link, you can. I will screen share as well. Let's see here. There we go. I kind of love and I kind of hate this transition. Like I like it, it's interesting, but I also think that it's a little distracting. But I think I like it more than I don't like it. But I think people are going to feel one or the other way about it. So if you really love it, keep it. So what specifically are we looking at here, Friday? Are we just portfolio browsing? Are we looking at the site as a whole? It hurts my focus and my eyes, Ava says. Disorienting. Okay. So you're getting mixed feedback on it. Please make it stop. All right. So let's take a look. We've got panoramas, travel and tourism, landscape, fine art, nature. Fine art. A different point of view, the artistic side of the photography in me, all these images have something to tell you. Just listen to them. I love this shot. This is beautiful. You have beautiful work, by the way. You pretty much got the invite because I kept scrolling through your photos from your links on the Arcanum. Some of that may be your location and that you have these beautiful backdrops too. All right, let's go see what products and services say. Wall art prints for decoration. I love that you actually have it on a wall. That's super helpful. It helps people envision it. You can buy any of the images on the portfolio section, choose the type and size of wall art you want, and I'll have it printed and sent to you in just a few days. You can buy licenses of my images for any kind of use. And of course, you can hire me to create a whole new imagery for your business. Where are the prices though? So this is something that a lot of you are fighting with. You're showing all of your photos. But if I'm interested in buying, I'm already bored and on to the next photographer because I can't find where to buy. It should either be in the portfolio image, and when I click on it, it comes up with the ability to buy, which I guess it does, this photo. Ah, there we go. So that's a little unintuitive. I should have found that easier too, because I have a smug mug as well. Wall art prints for decoration. You can buy the images of the portfolio section, choose the type and wall print that you want. You have to make it easier for them to find it. So when they click on it, the buy photos is here. Okay. Then I would have something in your products and services that takes them back to the images. Because this is the information that we're getting. So this is where I'm going to go to look at them. But then I have to go back to the portfolio and pick to buy. So even something a little here like click to purchase panoramas will let them know that they're in the right place and they're looking for it. And I would love to see something in here when I mouse over the last light, collections or prints starting at X amount of dollars. Also, you have way too many options. You don't need them. One, they can't buy these in all these sizes. You know, like, do you really want me to buy a 30 by 30 print? Is that your work that you want seen? Is that, or is it the whole panorama? So if you, I know from being in SmugMug that you actually have the ability to set individual prices, create a price list for your panoramas that crops it to the panorama. You know, like you probably don't want any of these until you get to 30 by 90, you know? So I would have only the options that are a panorama, because if I'm looking at that, I probably want it in that shape. And less is more. This is way too many prices. And they're actually, so you've got 1, 2, 8 by 24. This is the first option that you have. Maybe that one if you want to offer it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you've got probably 20 or 30 options, and you probably only have 10 that are actually purchasable. So I would go through and actually make it that way so that when I click to buy them, it shows me those 10 options. And I would also pick what kind of finishes you want. You don't have to have all of these. People usually don't even know what half of these are. So I would pick the ones that represent what you want it to be. You're getting good feedback too. Anna says she loves the landscapes. I think it's time for a new headshot too. Since I was a child, I always loved to travel, to discover new places, and of course, show these beautiful sights to my friend and family. Love every travel landscape photographer ever. That doesn't actually tell us anything about you, so this all gets cut. All these pushed me to study graphic arts and multimedia and to travel and live in different places in the world. I work in web design, graphic design, programming, and in outdoor activities like professional sailing. Help people fall in love with locations I visit. Here it is. In these crazy times we live in today, I want to help people fall in love with the locations I visit by sharing my vision through and passion through the photography. That's your about me. People don't read anymore. So simple is better. So I'd look through and maybe minimize that. Where am I in the world? I love this. This is really neat. So I would leave this part and I would minimize that to maybe just this line and like your name. I think it's short, it's sweet, it's simple, and you let the art sell the work for you. Contact form's good, nice and easy. I'm not a huge fan of your logo here, just because I think it's a little distracting. I don't think that all your little color dots here are really adding anything to the logo. I think that you could have the name and the initials and this without this. But I do love the work. It's very well put together. You have most of your brand as an artist already together. There's a lot of continuity in the work. It all looks like it's from the same artist, which is the first step to it being saleable. Thin wraps, metal, and flat mount. I would say something that big sticking out on the wall would make it look heavy in the larger sizes. I agree, not to mention that you're trusting people to hang them correctly. So we don't want to like decapitate any small children bouncing on the couch above the painting either. Also things to take into consideration when you're doing bigger prints. So I think for you, Freddie, what is the goal? At this point, we're just looking to be able to sell, right? So I think the branding questions that are in the 2 pages that are in the apprentice community would be helpful for you. And I would like to see maybe a list of who you're selling your work to, which may be families and people that are purchasing and buying them for their home. I could see it being really helpful with commercial properties because they like having beautiful photos like that. I could see it very sellable in everything from banks to hotels to restaurants to lobbies of whatever business it is. Interior designers and decorators that are staging homes, it would be really helpful. They could have a collection of them. Sandra's not in on this one, but if she watches the rewatch, I would say something else to look at would be to have a collection of rentables for stagers and interior designers where they could take them and put them in for a certain amount of time. You could also look at doing like a subscription kind of fee where people could have the artwork and it would stay for a month, for 6 months, for a year, and then swap out with a new piece so that they're constantly keeping fresh work. And it's not like, oh, that painting's been hanging on the wall for 27 years, you know, like pretty much everything at my grandmother's house, you know, that way it would keep fresh. And as they're updating and changing new things, it would add more visual value and kind of change the feel of the room. Because let's face it, if we put 10 pieces of Ava's work on the wall, and then next month I put 10 pieces of Freddie's work on the wall, and the next month I put 10 pieces of Richard's on the wall, those are going to create very different vibes when you walk in the room. The art has a lot of transformational properties and values. So those are all things that you can look at. The problem is how to reach them. That's everybody's problem, right? So how do we reach them? One, almost every business has social media now, and they have designated people, whether it's a very small business where the owner is the one that's answering the emails, or, you know, in my case for the turning page, it's a toss up. Could be me, could be Carrie, could be Mackenzie. It just depends on who's in the office and manning the email and the social media and the phones that day. So that being the case, someone is going to respond. So I would reach out and create a list. And I would start with people that are near you first, because you have the ability to actually go meet with them. So before you contact someone and say, hey, I want you to buy my shit, because that's what we do. Make sure that, one, you're a good fit and that you understand enough about them and their business, if you're networking, connecting with other people, to know where you can benefit them. So, for example, right below me in the new studio is a coffee shop called Java's Brewin', and it's been owned by the same family for 10 years. The father/husband is in there at least 4 or 5 days a week. He's the chef. He does all of the cooking, and my entire studio smells like chili on Wednesdays when he makes his homemade lamb chili, and smells like muffins on Sundays at 5 a.m., which is the only day I get up early enough to go to work, because the whole place smells amazing. And I probably spent about $150 with him beforehand. I know his name, I know his wife's name, I know all the paintings on the walls down there in this kitschy little goofy coffee shop are his wife's paintings, because that's her passion. And they all have their tags on, and she brings them up and she fills pretty much any space that holds still with them, with all these really beautiful, vibrant flowers. I know that they have a massage therapist that comes in and brings her chair twice a week. They have the little table with everybody's business cards in the area. I know that the peach and pear green drink, which I have been drinking the whole time we were on the thing, is actually his daughter's concoction, but it was so good that they ended up adding it to the menu, because everybody kept asking her to make it for them when it wasn't. I know that they just came up with the idea to do these little coins that say spread the love and the coffee. And you can buy them for $2 and then either give them to someone or leave them on the counter for the person that comes in after you, and buy a person a cup of coffee. And that's their community project to pay it forward. So when I went in and made friends with them, now I'm a friend of theirs. Now every time I walk in, hey, Jess, and they give me a hug. I spent like $200 with them. We have a card on file in the account. I buy a cup of coffee once a week for whoever comes in after me. I put $30 in the tip jar at the beginning of every week to cover, because I know I'm down there 3 to 5 times. They know that all of my other artists and photographers can come down and put stuff on my card, and we just keep it loaded. So now that I know about their family, now I can go to them and go, hey, Bob, so now that I've spent almost $250 on your muffins and coffee beans and green drinks, would it be okay if I went in and put a print in the coffee shop? Am I putting a wedding photo? No. What am I putting? Oh, just the shoot we did with the cute little 5-year-old with her hair in curlers pouring coffee for my dog at a tea table. Oh, why? Because they're a coffee shop? Yes. You know, so that's going to benefit them. And I said, would you like anything on it? Hey, by the way, I also noticed that your binder of drinks, because it's a 3-ring binder with like the little inserts and all the pictures they took with their cell phone. It's a little out of date and it could use some updating with the photos. What if I came down and did new photos of all of your drinks and foods that you guys offer? Okay. Do you see how it was first, let me add value to your life. Let me actually build a relationship with you. Now that we have a relationship, let's talk about how I can benefit you by updating your menu with all these beautiful photos of all your amazing food and drinks so that more people want to buy them. And by the way, would you mind doing this for me in exchange and letting me hang a photo and maybe taking down one of the 37 prints of flower paintings that your wife has up so that I can hang a framed print and it can just say, like, when you're done your coffee, come upstairs for photos, you know? That's how you build the relationships. The problem is that most people go and they look, and when they see that they're supposed to go connect and network, their idea of networking is, here's my business card. Let me tell you what you could do for me. And we don't mean to sound that way, but that's our objective. So we try to build the business before we build the relationship with these people. So especially with businesses, I've had 3 clients that have come in because his friend's daughter was 9 months pregnant and wanted baby photos. And they said, oh, a new photographer just moved in upstairs. You know, that's when you start building the relationship, is when if they like you, they're going to hire you. That's how it works all the time. The problem is you made a big investment in the client. I do, but I made the big investment because I know that I can't park in front of my building unless I'm here before 7 a.m. because of all of the business they do all day, every day, from about 8:30 until about 6 o'clock at night. They have the same businesses that send their secretary girls in for lunch every single day down there. Those are all potential businesses that I can connect with. Down the hall from me is a realtor that just called after me saying hi and connecting with him. Now, I didn't make any financial investment in him, but I made an emotional investment. I say hi to him every time I see him. I drop my head in and go, hey, I'm going down for one of those green smoothies. Can I bring you girls anything? To his secretaries. Oh, no, that's fine. Or yes, I need those chocolate chip muffins because I can smell them too. You know, and so we build these relationships. So when they needed a new photographer and studio for all of their real estate photography, and they have 60 listings at $100 a piece, who do you think they're coming down the hall to see? 1, it's convenient. All they got to do is pop over. 2, they know me by name. 3, they know that I'm not in it just for the money. And they see people coming in and out, and they pet the little dogs that come in for pet portraits and things like that. It's about relationships. Everything, every person, think of the 10 people that you could call right now that would come help you move, that would pack your boxes, that would, you know, help you paint your house, that you can call to go pick up your kid from school because you're running late. Those people are people that you have invested in emotionally and mentally and physically, that you have a relationship with. If you want a successful business, build the relationship first. The business will follow it, I promise. If you're looking to advertise and build business with other people, because obviously I don't have personal relationships with every single one of my clients. A lot of people come in and the first time I ever meet them is when they come in for a session. Then you're spending time or you're spending money. Those are the only 2 options that you have. So do you think that we can do that at a distance with clients far away? Absolutely. But again, I do think that it takes a little more effort. So if they're far away, then maybe, 1, I think that you start locally always, and then branch out and move further. So if I was you, Freddie, and I was looking to market my work, if I was looking at businesses, I would be looking at interior designers, and I would be looking at every commercial business that has empty wall space. Start with the places that you're a customer of. What is your bank? What are the hotels that are near you that you've gone and stayed at? What are grocery stores, law firms, tax attorneys? What else? A salon that your mom or your sister goes to, hairstylists, massage therapists, pet hotels, like whatever it is, wherever they are, look around and go, who do I spend money on? Go through your bank receipts and see all of the charges on your card and go, where did I spend my money this month? Where can I go put this money back into? And the next time you're walking through, go, my picture can hang there. She's got empty space on the wall right behind her. How about in the hallway? You know, I've got 10 businesses that are in the development that my Turning Page studio is. I've got dental offices here that I'm approaching now, you know, and there are a lot of people that hate the dentist, like despise the dentist. Bye, Ava. Nice, serene, calming photos in the dental chair makes them a little calmer about the fact that they're about to have giant needles shoved into their face. I'm not projecting here at all. you know, doctors' offices, maternity wards, those kind of places need that kind of calm. Hospitals are a huge one. How many rooms do they have in a hospital? More than most hotels. What if we were going to create work that would hang in each room, a painting for each room, and schools, teacher lounges, classrooms, all that kind of stuff. There's tons and tons of opportunity. So before you start thinking about how to reach them, think about who you're reaching. So I would say that your first assignment would be to go around town and look at, say, creating 50 to 200 places that you have the potential to put your work in. And let's say you get 1% of them. If it's 100 people, then you're only going to get one. But that's one that you didn't have. And I'm guaranteeing you that if you just send out a round of emails, that you'll be lucky if you get one, because personal connection, because it comes off as spam, in the same way that you don't read half the email that comes into you. But if you actually go in there and ask to talk to a manager or someone and go, hey, I've been banking here for 10 years. I always notice that big blank space behind your teller desk. I would love to hang one of my pieces. By the way, here it is. You know, we have a submission rental program that a lot of our businesses like to work with, where we'll come and we'll hang it for a period of somewhere between 3 and 12 months and then bring a new one to hang. Or we do it seasonally. So we actually hang the spring pictures in the middle of winter when you're wishing for warm weather, just so that you have a little hope that it's coming despite all the snow. You know, like those kind of things, and talk to them about what they might be willing to invest in that, and if they'd be interested in doing that, or if they would like to just buy one painting from you to hang up there indefinitely. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can move with it, but you have to have the list first. So the first thing we did when we opened was I had all my people on creating the mailing lists of every single business that we had the potential to connect with, mailing lists for all the locals that we could send out for all the individual people. Some of it is just a numbers game. You know, like you look at Trey Ratcliffe made over $1 million for Peak Design for the bags. Look at how big his following is on social media. Just his, not even considering Peak Design. If I was mailing monasteries today, yeah, and that's out of the box too. And most people aren't doing that. So if you consider those kind of things and where your clients are, that's all super, super helpful. If you go in and you create a list though, let's assume that you're getting 1%. That means for every 100 people or businesses that you collaborate, one of them is going to buy, you know, and then you move up from there. Now, if the next 100 people or businesses that you collaborate with, 5 of those people know the first person that actually bought from you, they're going to call them and go, oh, we saw that you were a client. And he's going to go, oh my God, yeah, I love that program. He's so nice. He's so talented. He brings it in. We have new constant artwork all the time. And it's amazing. Most businesses have a set aside budget for ambiance in the studio. My mom is a interior horticultural artist. She goes and hangs plants. So like this kind of stuff. And they have all the orchids and things, and you can see like I've got like the little plants on either side. That's what she does. She goes in, she takes care of the plants, she brings them in, and once a week she comes in and cares for them, waters them, pulls off all the dead leaves, makes sure they're happy, rotates them so that they grow evenly towards the sun, that kind of stuff. And they pay her weekly or monthly to do that. And her company is a multi-million-dollar company that she works for. So it's the same kind of thing, only they require much less maintenance because it's a painting. You don't have to feed it or water it. It's self-sustaining, you know? So I would say that the first thing for you is to decide where you want your work hung. You know, bigger businesses would probably get a discount if I was doing it that way, if I was looking for places to hang my work, just because of the number of people going through. So the coffee shop, I'm happy. One, I totally trade photographs for muffins. And if you had these muffins, you would too. And I'm totally fine with that. So a lot of times I'll go down and do food photography for them and they feed me in exchange. I'm Italian. That's basically like telling me you love me. But I know that probably 400 people go in and out of there over the course of the week, even with it being a little coffee shop, and they're all locals that are right next door to me, and I am literally right above them directly. How easy is it for them to make their way up the stairs and come say hi and do a portrait session while they're having coffee? You know, and now we build that in. Drop your puppy off, drop your kids off, let us do the session. You can go downstairs, have a cup of coffee in 5 minutes to yourself. Remember what that was like? No? Go. Coffee is on me, by the way. I will absolutely give you a coin for a $2 coffee, which patronizes their business. And so it's a mutual beneficial thing. It has to be that way. Relationships are that way. Otherwise, they die. So whatever you're looking to get out of it, make sure that you have found something of equal or greater value to give to them. But if I wanted to start working on business, I don't know that I would hang pictures for free everywhere, but I would offer them at a significant discount that would cover my expense of creating them. And maybe I would pick 3 to 5 big businesses that I know could bring future business in, that I would offer a discounted rate on the rental program. Because if you sign them up for the rental program, that means all of those people, if you go and switch out your photograph once a month, that means that all those people that go in, because you think like a bank or a coffee shop or a hotel, they're coming in over and over. So they get used to that photograph of yours. But if it switches every month, they're going to start looking forward to seeing what next month's picture from Freddie is. And then they're going to be like, who is this guy anyway? And then the business owner goes, oh, he comes in here all the time. He's been a customer for years. He does this incredible work. Here's his card. You should go check out his website. Yeah? Okay, so my battery is at 3% and my computer's gonna shut itself down on me because I'm not plugged in right now, and we're just at the 1 o'clock mark anyway. So were there any other questions, comments, concerns before we call it a day?
Thank you.
Okay. So next week is, what's today? Today's Thursday. Next week is on Tuesday, and it's at 3. And I'm thinking you might have let us into it, Freddie. We might look at some pricing and products and beginning to actually put together the pricing structure for different kinds of business plans for that one. So is there anything else that's on your minds that you guys would like to have a hangout on specifically for content? Nope. All right. Well, then that's what we're going to keep it at. I'll drop some info in the community. For those of you watching from Facebook, if you like what you're listening to and want to come join our family, it's part of the Arcanum. You can go to thearcanum.com and put in a submission, and then just drop me a line and we'll pick you up. It's $79 a month. And you get personalized one-on-one with all of us. So, okay, that's everything.